bad movies, bad life advice, and even worse life decisions. We cover it all here on the Life with Kenny podcast. I'm your host, Kenny. Grab a beer, sit back, and relax for this week's episode, because things are about to get weird.
What's an all-American girl like you doing with a geek like this?
Forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Fuck me gently with the chainsaw.
Jimmy was off the hook. I know you really don't listen to Slipknot.
Judge Randall.
You are listening to a Life with Kenny podcast.
Not quite my tempo. It's all good. No worries. Here we go.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Life with Kenny podcast. We are having a movie night.
Yay!
So, Movie Night is the podcast series where we discuss the best and worst movies in cinema history. I don't know why I still say that right up, because it's not really accurate. We've watched a lot of middle-of-the-road movies lately, but that's okay. This week, I'm joined by my wonderful girlfriend, Melissa.
Hello.
And it is October. We are enjoying the horror movie festivities. So today we will be watching a movie that Melissa's never seen. It's from 2014. It's called It Follows.
And it's not about the clown. It's not it.
Do you know that?
I think so.
Did you watch it?
No.
So why are you making these proclamations?
Well, it's just an easy assumption to make, I suppose.
Do you know what happens when you assume?
I'm usually right, but...
Oh, okay. I guess that's the saying. So, It Follows is starring Micah Monroe, who is also a star of one of my other favorite movies, The Guest, which I don't think you've watched yet either.
No, I've just seen your t-shirt.
And it's directed by David Robert Mitchell and written by David Robert Mitchell as well. Before we get too far into the movie, I actually wanted to talk to Melissa a little bit about how our Halloween horror movie stuff has been going so far. How is it for you?
Fun. I like scary movies. And we watched a scary one, that VHS one.
Yep,
Did we talk
VHS.
about that one?
The second one, I think.
That one was really scary for me because it was like very gory and bloody. I usually enjoy the paranormal ones more, but
Right.
this one just like grossed me out. And it was scary that way.
Yeah, there was the one that I was really excited for to show you.
Yeah, the cult one. That was not fun.
It
Not
held
fun
up.
times.
Held up really well for me.
And then we watched Blair Witch as well.
The remake.
Yeah, because I've seen the original, but not the remake, and it was nice.
You liked it?
I think so. Did I fall asleep at
You
the
fell
end, though?
asleep.
Okay, because I can't remember how it ends.
You actually, earlier that day too, was it earlier that day we were playing the Blair Witch video game?
Yeah.
That came out?
Yeah, we played that, and you were too scared, and you're like, let's just watch the movie. And I says, okay.
Yeah, I was too scared. Get out of here.
You were, because you were wearing the headphones that were surround sound.
Right.
If I were wearing the headphones, I'd probably be scared too.
But you know why I quit, right?
Because the dog glitched.
Exactly. That was the most annoying thing.
And then you had to like redo everything because it didn't save all your progress.
Right. So for listeners who like horror movies and stuff, the Blair Witch game is loosely based on the movies. And in that game, you basically rely on your pet dog, who I think is like a police sniffing dog.
It's a German Shepherd.
To help you find clues and stuff to find this missing boy in the woods. Mm-hmm. But he's also the only thing that shows you where the monsters are in the dark. Mm-hmm. Like, he has to point at them and bark and growl. Like, you have to pay attention to the dog's mannerisms to find where the monsters are.
Yeah, and like so the monsters were all invisible until
you shined your light on them long enough, and then they...
Yeah,
which is fine, but the issue I had was, I think it must be because it's a new game and it's not done by a big company, but we were doing a boss battle. Like, we were fighting like a main guy, and the dog froze pointing the opposite direction of the bad guy. So I kept shining my light where the dog was pointing.
And it kept getting you from behind.
Right. And then at one point I was just spinning in circles, and then I finally killed the thing after probably 15 minutes. and then you have to follow the dog to the next clue, but the dog was
It's
frozen in
stuck.
place, so I had nowhere to go. Yeah, that was interesting. I think I had more fun playing that than I did rewatching the Blair Witch movie, though.
Really?
The remake, yeah. I remember watching it in theaters and I liked it a lot. But this watch through, there was like a couple parts that still were pretty cool, like when they were walking through the river and she slices her foot open.
That's what you like.
Well, it comes back later in the movie, right?
Because it got they pull a slimy thing out of it.
Yeah, so there's like more to it, which I thought was cool when I first watched it. And that still was cool this time around, but a lot of it didn't really hold up. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, it makes sense that you'd go grab a drone in the middle of a tree when you're by yourself in the middle of a forest. But now we're watching it and she's like climbing a 60-foot tree to get a drone. And I'm just like,
Leave it.
do something else here, bud.
Especially
Like,
in the dark, too. Like, do something else.
yeah.
Like sleep.
Or just jump out of that tree. I don't know. Like,
Oh, yeah.
there's a few options if you're being chased by a monster in the woods, and climbing to get a drone would be my last one, but whatever. We also watched Drag Me to Hell. Do you remember that one? With
Yes.
the gypsy woman?
Oh, yes. I remember.
Did you like that one?
I did. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, there was effects in that movie that I like a lot, but I think that was probably what you liked least about that movie. Was all the weird effects, like when her fist
Yeah,
was in the
like,
woman's fist was in her mouth
It
and
was
shit.
kind of cheesy. When was that one made, though? Like, that was probably good for its time.
It was fairly recent.
Oh.
Yeah, so the guy who made
So
that
he was
movie,
emulating the old time.
kind of. The guy who, I don't know if you know much about do you know anything about the Evil Dead movies?
No.
So the first Evil Dead movie was made, I believe, like late 70s maybe. And it's basically a bunch of kids go to a cabin for a weekend and weird shit starts happening. And it was so like batshit crazy for the time that people were like, this movie's ridiculous. So people went to watch it, and kind of like the same reason people go to see The Room. So the guy who made that movie said, okay, that's it. I'm making Evil Dead 2. And what he did is he basically made the exact same movie shot for shot, but everything that was weird the first time, he amped it up. So if a guy gets scared because there's a deer on the wall in the first movie,
He made it like
he made
two
the deer
deers
start.
or like have like googly eyes.
No, one deer that started like talking to him and like real
Oh.
demonic and stuff. Like it just goes super crazy. So in the first one, I don't know if he cuts his arm off. He might cut his arm off to get away from a demon
Spoiler alert, come on.
in the first movie. But in the second movie, he cuts his arm off, but then he straps a chainsaw to his arm that he cut off. Right?
Oh my
So
God.
he just ramps it up, right? So that's been like his film style. So I don't know if you remember the Spider-Man movies that came out in the early 2000s with Tobey Maguire.
And
And-
James Franco was the bad guy.
Yeah.
I recall one of them.
So the guy who did Drag Me to Hell also directed those movies.
Oh.
Sam Raimi. So they got like a weird vibe. There's a lot more movies that he's done that have like a weird vibe, but it's fun. That like Don't Breathe is one that I want to show you that I think he produced. So we'll dive into those. But yeah, Drag Me to Hell holds up pretty well. I had fun watching that one,
Yeah, those are kind of funny.
even though I was drawing most of the time. Speaking of which, I'm doing Inktober. So if you're a listener and you're interested in artwork, I'm doing a bunch of creepy art, one drawing a day, over on my artwork Instagram at dreadsketch, DreadSketch. You can go there.
Sound it out. Dread sketch.
Word.
No word.
But I mumble, so I felt like I needed to spell it out.
Okay.
One that we watched that I had never seen before, which surprised me that I liked it, was Apostle,
Oh, yeah.
which was the other guy from The Guest. And it was kind of like a religious cult movie,
It
I
very
guess,
much was a religious
like
cult.
old-timey one, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't as religious cult as the VHS 2 skit.
It was still culty, though.
Yeah, but not as much, I don't think.
The,
It was the same guy, though. Same director. Did you know that?
no.
Same director did those. So we watched Apostle, and it has the guy who stars in The Guest as well. I can't think of his name, but you knew him.
The Beast.
Yeah. The guy who plays Beast in Beauty
You
and the
know
Beast.
his name. What's his name?
I'm blanking.
Me too.
Oh, I got hiccups too. Great podcasting. What did you think of that movie? Because we never really talked about that.
I didn't mind it.
Yeah. It was pretty arty, art house-ish,
Yeah.
which normally isn't my thing. But I feel like they pulled off enough like creepy stuff and suspense that it kept me going.
I'm
And
trying to remember it. I
they had a
don't
lot of
remember,
side
honestly.
stories.
I remember like the dad killed his daughter.
Spoilers.
Well, that's all I remember really.
Okay, well, I remembered a lot of it because it's a pretty captivating movie, and I would
Oh, I
recommend
remember.
it. Yeah,
Oh, okay, never mind.
yeah, there was a lot that happens in that movie. But yeah, I would recommend that movie for listeners for sure, especially if you're a fan of It Follows, the movie we're watching today, because they're kind of similar in tone. They're a little bit more artsy than most horror movies.
Okay.
So I'm interested to see if you like this one, because you didn't like Hereditary.
No.
You're not huge on Apostle. We haven't really
I
watched.
liked those ones because they had the cool shots and they were like really kind of like dark in what you're looking at. Like they made the mood and the atmosphere look really creepy.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't like the stories.
Right.
Like I liked
Apostle,
watching
I
it. Like
liked
there
a
was
lot.
very cool cinematography. But
Yeah.
Hereditary was stupid. And Apostle was like, I don't even really remember it, but I'm sure it was fine.
I think if we talked about it, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah."
I'm
It's one
I'm
of those
remembering the
movies.
end now.
Yeah, yeah. The end was cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, It Follows. Have you seen that movie before?
No. There's this girl on the front who has a nice bralette, and I kind of want it.
That's Micah Monroe. I think she's like slowly blowing up because I've seen her in a few things since this movie, but I haven't seen her in anything like major yet. She was in a movie with that guy that you and your friend obsess about.
Okay, that's...
What's his name? Timothy Chalamet?
I don't obsess over that 12-year-old, please.
The movie was Hot Summer Nights. Did you watch that one?
No.
No.
See, I don't obsess.
She was in Fifth Wave as well. I think. Well, I started watching that one and I think I liked it, but I don't remember.
Fifth Wave? Oh, Fifth Wave. That's
Yeah.
the one with Chloe Grace Moretz.
Yeah.
She's in this? In that?
Yeah, she's in that movie. Not
Really?
Chloe Grace Moretz, but this girl is. Yeah.
No, Chloe Grace Moretz is.
Well,
With her?
Yeah, but I think so. Yes.
Doing what? What does she do?
I'm not sure. It says her name was Ringer. And she's like the 4th top billed person for that movie, so I'm assuming she played a fairly major part.
Okay.
I don't remember it enough, so I couldn't tell you, but
Did you
Yeah.
actually finish it? Because I think I...
no, I didn't. I think I fell asleep. I think that was the one movie we watched together that I fell asleep. And it wasn't because I didn't like it. I think it was just a long day. But so It Follows. You haven't seen it.
Nope.
Have you heard anything about it?
Just from what you've told me.
Okay. Do you think you'll like it based on what I've told you? And based on what you know about it?
Well, you just compared it to Apostle.
Yeah. I shouldn't have done that.
I don't know. I feel like maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm
well,
on the fence.
We'll see. We'll see how it turns out for you. We're going to go next week to Zombieland 2
Yeah!
for my birthday.
Bring it back. Bye.
So next time we do a podcast together, we can talk about that. What we thought about that.
Sure.
And then what I want to do this weekend, if you're down for it, because I haven't talked to you about this yet, I was hoping we could get the first movie in the big 3 horror movie trilogy or like franchises.
What?
And watch them. So the first Friday the 13th, the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and the first Halloween movies.
Of course.
And we should watch those in the one day.
On Monday?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then we
Where do
can
we
talk
get them?
about those too and see if you like any of them. I have them all.
Oh,
Yeah. But I'm just curious if you're interested in doing that, because I think it'd be interesting to see how much you hate those movies because you don't like old movies.
But I've seen Friday the 13th, or no, I've seen the Nightmare on Elm Street and I liked it, I think.
I don't know if you did. Because I've asked you about that movie before and you seemed reluctant that you've watched it.
But I also don't remember it.
Okay.
Because I was probably in like grade 9 or 10.
Right. So you guys can look forward to that stuff on future episodes. I guess we should just go watch It Follows.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be back.
Bye.
We are back from watching It Follows, and I had a really good time just scaring the shit out of Melissa a second ago, so, it was worth it. Okay, post-show questions for Melissa. Do you regret watching this movie?
No.
What would you rate it, 1 to 5?
2.
Wait, really? Mm-hmm. Why?
Because it was too slow. And the music wasn't good.
A lot of people are going to be upset with you over that.
And it wasn't really that scary.
Okay.
And it was just dumb.
Was there anything that you did like about it?
There was the town that I liked because the houses were cool.
Detroit?
They were like really nice looking old houses. And then there was a shot in the forest road with all the leaves on the ground and stuff. I really like that, but that's about it.
So you like the setting?
Just the setting.
Okay, you didn't like the story?
No.
What didn't you like about it?
Well, it was just dumb.
See, a lot of people did like the idea of this movie because it's somewhat unique. Like, you've never heard of like
it's basically just personifying like AIDS or something.
Well, it's a sexually transmitted curse, right?
They're personifying STDs into a person that follows you around and then kills you eventually, really.
Well,
If
minus
you don't get it fixed.
Minus the killing thing you just described a bunch of kids I went to high school with, so.
Oh my god.
So, It Follows has a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb, 96% Rotten Tomato score, which is extremely high,
Wow.
3.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and 72% of Google users like this movie. I would probably personally give this movie, upon review, about like a 2.5 or a 3 out of 5. I think the first time I watched it, I was just watching a bunch of shitty horror movies at the time, because I was doing 30 movies or 31 movies in October a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So this was one of the better ones that I watched. So I feel like I was more pleasantly surprised with that. But yeah, rewatching it, yeah, it didn't really hit me the way that it did. This movie cost $2 million to make, but it made over 20 million, I think I read somewhere, worldwide.
Yeah,
So
there's some perverts out in the world.
It did. Wait, why perverts?
So they're probably like, oh, a movie about everyone having sex and then there's a ghost following them. I love that.
There wasn't really that many people having sex in this movie, though.
Yeah, there was.
For a movie being about people passing a sexually transmitted curse.
This girl just had sex with like 4 people in the span of 3 days.
Did she, though?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a bit more later.
Maybe she didn't.
But I think she only had sex with 2 people.
In the span of 2 days.
3 people.
Yeah.
And it was more than 2 days. She frickin' got raped and hospitalized. Or I guess not technically raped, but then hospitalized. Then she got out of the hospital. Got back to the point of going back to school. Then left school. Then had her whole panic attack thing. Then she built up trust with this new guy. Slept with him. Then they dealt their whole thing of like going somewhere else. So it was probably a few weeks. Alright. That's the thing about this movie that I don't personally like, is you have no time frame in general. You don't know when it was supposed to be set. You don't know how long it's supposed to take place. You know? And that was something that you said you were getting annoyed with, was because you never knew what period it was set in.
Yeah, because they had old TVs with antennas. They had a weird, like, old phone with a cord on the wall.
Right.
But then this girl had this, like, weird cell phone thing that she was reading a book off of and could turn into a flashlight somehow. And then all the cars were, like, new-ish. Like, it looked like 80s fashion, like, housewares. And then on the street, there was some old cars. But then there was, like, a Silverado that she almost ran into. That was probably from, like, 2005.
Right. And I think the collapse of the Detroit economy, where 8 Mile became, like, even worse and more sketchy, was, like, fairly recent in compared to, like, the 1960s and 1980s stuff that they were showing throughout the movie. And they had a whole long thing about how they couldn't go to the fair because after 8 Mile was super sketchy and all that stuff, right? And it was showing all the houses. The border. Well, and it was showing all the houses that were, like, defunct and stuff from the... I think it was, like, an economy collapse there.
In Detroit, yes. How do we know that it was set in Detroit, though? Did it say somewhere?
Well, yeah, like, the whole thing. Like, they were talking about 8 Mile, and 8 Mile's in Detroit.
Oh, really?
And they were talking about how it's in Michigan and all this stuff, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
So...
So it was set in, like, present day, just people couldn't afford to redo their houses?
I don't know. It's
because that
one
literally
of those weird
looked
things.
like a house from the 70s, like my great aunt's house with an antenna TV and those old floral couches
Right.
and, like, strange lamps.
And old TVs and...
Phones and radios and typewriters.
I think the director for this movie had an image in mind when he did it for a time period and vibe he was going for, which is cool. Oh, jeez. just snacking over there. Which is, like, cool and all, but it feels out of place to me, having, like, all this old-fashioned stuff, and even the music felt very, like, trying to be retro synthwave. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this was one of the inspirations probably for all the stuff that we've been getting recently, like Stranger Things and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like all these throwback retro things. Yeah. Like people are trying to bring back that vibe that people had from those old horror movies. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. A lot of people feel like they did it very successfully with this movie because a lot of people like it. It's got 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's obviously pretty popular.
But maybe not because of that.
Well, a lot of people do say that that's a big reason, but we'll get into that a little later too. How do you feel about the characters in this movie?
I like the girl that just eats and sleeps all the time.
I feel like everybody was pretty much useless except for the main character, Jay, and the guy that she slept with in the first place. I feel like those two were very important to the plot.
Well,
and then after that, it felt like it was just dragging a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like for the first...
It dragged the whole time until they got to the pool, if you ask me.
Well, for the first half hour or so, like where they go on their date, and he's super nice to her, and then he gets in the car, and then he like ties her to the chair, and then you see the first naked woman walk towards them. That whole part is the best and scariest and weirdest part of this movie to me.
Yeah.
And then pretty much everything after that, like there's a little bit after that where it's like you're uncertain what's going on, like when you see the old lady in the school. But then after that it starts to get a little bit convoluted to me because you started working in new characters that you didn't have to work in, like the neighbor boy. And the whole reason they did that, it just felt like because they needed to extend it, so they wrote him in to show somebody that they could kill off, plus also have a place that they could escape to for a bit.
Yeah.
And that was like all while they were setting up her hooking up with the high school boy, which was weird because it felt like there was quite a bit of an age gap there. Like he seemed like he was like grade 9 or grade 10. and she
Yeah.
was in university.
Yeah, it was very strange.
You're like that girl snacking away right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you didn't like anything about this movie then? Basically? Okay, well, what about that? Like, what scenes stand out to you?
The pool scene,
Okay.
because that was the most crazy part of the movie, I think, because my favorite character gets shot.
Okay, do you want to explain to listeners what the pool scene is? Because some people probably haven't seen this movie.
Okay, so they have this plan to go to a
Okay, well,
public pool.
first let's talk about what it is. So,
It is STDs personified.
okay, so it's some sort of spirit, ghost, monster, demon. We don't know.
It's some kind of spirit that personifies itself as someone you may know, a stranger, it doesn't really matter, but it's someone that's like following you and essentially just wants to kill you.
And how does it kill you? We saw two instances. One, the very first one, was the girl on the beach, and her leg was snapped backwards,
Right.
and we don't really know what happened there.
I thought she drove herself over with the car.
You think so?
I don't know. The car was on and running.
But it would have been on the other side of her probably if it ran her over, or she'd be under the car if she did it herself, right? There's no way to really do that yourself.
Well, I don't know how she died then.
Well, that thing got to her, obviously, because she was running away.
Okay.
Okay, so then it is killing people in order of how people slept with them. That's the best way to explain it. Mm-hmm. So unlike an STD, like if you get AIDS in real life and then you sleep with somebody, you're not like, okay, you have AIDS, but I don't now. That's not how it works, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea is you have to keep sleeping with people to pass it on, and then they have to pass it on. It's like, this is the best example. It's like those stupid chain letters you used to get in email when you were in high
Ew,
school
I
or
hate
elementary
those.
school, where it's like, hey, pass this on, or you're gonna die in 7 days from somebody who looks exactly like your father having sex with you to death. Which almost happened in this movie.
Yeah.
So how we know what happens, besides the first girl, is based on her neighbor that she sleeps with to pass the curse on. Mm-hmm. And she sees
His mom.
his mom having sex with, well, what looks like his mom
It's the spirit, but
having sex with him. And there's like a weird slime all over it while it happens. And then the kid's head rolls over and he's completely gray.
he's gray and dead.
It's like it took out his whole essence or soul or something, which is weird. But anyways, so that's the monster. And they tried a few ways to stop it. They tried outrunning it, but it always finds its way. They tried
Shooting it.
well, locking it outside of the door, but it breaks holes through the door to get through. Like it finds a way in, smashes windows, whatever. They tried shooting it, and it did fall down the first time, so you thought it might have done something, but then it just kind of
gets back up.
got back up, yeah. And then they decide to go to the pool, which is your favorite scene.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what happens with the pool? What's the whole setup here? Sorry for
So-
interrupting. I just felt like we need to explain what it is.
So they brought all of the things from their house that they can plug into outlets.
Yeah, from
electrical
their
outlets.
from their 1980s time machine.
Yeah, so they literally brought lamps and typewriters and
Electric typewriters.
hair dryers that are like literally so old that they'd probably start a fire just by turning them on.
Perfect.
And they plugged a whole bunch of stuff in around the pool and then had the girl go into the water with the intentions of having the it thing follow her into the water. Then she would get out and the kids would kick all of the things the electrical things into the water and try to electrocute it.
Right.
But that doesn't happen because then she gets in the pool. The thing comes through the door and starts throwing the stuff in the water himself.
Right.
But it doesn't electrocute her.
Because it starts shorting out or something, right?
I feel like he threw it he was whipping the stuff at her head. So it was like unplugging from the wall anyway. Like
Right.
there's no power going to the things, I feel.
I also feel like pretty much every single outlet that's anywhere near water these days has to be set up to a breaker, so that it doesn't electrocute people.
Oh, yeah.
Like imagine if somebody was at that public swimming pool and they had their phone plugged in or something, and some kid was like, "Oh, I'm gonna take a video of this with it plugged in," and people got electrocuted because of it. Like,
But
not
when was this movie set though?
well, that's the thing. Apparently, clamshell fucking cell phone girl could have done that,
weird.
right? So it's different, but it makes me wonder, like, what would you do if you were in that position where you had this thing following you? Like, does the pool thing seem like an idea you would come up with yourself to try and stop it?
No, honestly, I'd probably just let it kill me.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I guess, well, yeah, I don't know. The first murder that we saw...
Because, like, if you
seemed
don't let
pretty
it kill
vicious.
you, then you're going to be stuck with it anyways. Because it's either you're going to pass it on to someone, they'll pass it on, and then what if they don't keep passing it on? Then they're just going to kill everyone who came before it, and then you're back at square one again. So you either have to pass it on or just let it eat you.
Right.
I'd just die.
Yeah.
If I'm already in that situation, I'm like, well, nothing better to do.
Yeah, like the only thing you could do in that instance is like, I don't know, set up a orgy from like people from around the world, and everybody has sex with each other individually in a row, and then they spread out to opposite sides of the planet, because then it would have to go from person to person across the planet, right?
So it might just take a little bit longer, but it's still going to get ya.
But those people would also, if they're having an international orgy, they're probably swinging with other people who are swinging with other people, right? Like,
And then it's just causing more issues.
well, then it'll just kill a lot more people, and then when
Why
I'm
don't
60,
you just let it kill everyone until the person who started it all and end it?
right?
That's your it follows too.
Yeah,
Just go through the line, kill everyone who has the STD ghost until it gets to number one, and then we figure out who number one is. Like, how did it start in the first place?
yeah, that's an interesting idea. I guess we would never really find out though how it would start or like any backstory to it. I'm a big
Like, there's
fan.
literally no theory of how this started or anything in this movie.
Yeah,
They're just
there's
kinda
no
like,
explanation.
We just have to get away from it.
I'm a fan of revenge horror movies. And part of me wants to see a movie where like maybe a girl gets this because like as shitty as it sounds, maybe she gets it because she was raped. But then she basically like starts like entrapping predators so that they get it next. And it's just like, instead of her killing them, it's like systematically killing them for her, you know? Like maybe she sees like a guy in an alley trying to rape a girl and she steps in and like, yeah, obviously shit happens
Rapes
to her.
Him herself.
Or she gets raped instead of this other girl. Like, as shitty as that sounds, but it's like, you're gonna die anyways. So why wouldn't you like let this thing kill this dude, right? It's like really weird, but I don't know how you would write it so that it's not the main characters just getting raped constantly. But
I don't like that.
But the whole idea would just be like using this curse that you have to try and like take out bad people, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Or like she would like not get raped by them, but she would try and like quote unquote seduce these rapists. Because then they get taken out, you know?
What if she comes across a Jeffrey Dahmer of them, then she gets eaten?
Well, not really. Like, I don't know.
There's lots of perverts out there.
Right, but I feel like getting eaten by Jeffrey Dahmer would probably be like the least of her worries in that situation where, because then she'd be like, either way, if I get eaten by him, he's going to die anyways, right? Because he's next in line.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm also wondering how that would work too. Like if they wanted to take it to another level where like you have sex with someone and they have it, right? But then what if they die before it gets to them? Does it revert back to you or does it cancel out the curse?
I don't know.
Because it only goes to the next person once it gets the person that the last person slept with, right?
Yeah, so if you like actually commit suicide, is that ending it all?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, if the guy that she slept with died in like a car crash or something, like 2 days later, would the curse disappear or would it go right back to her?
I don't know.
That would be
There's
interesting
no
to
lore
explore
on it,
too.
or
Right.
is there?
Not that I know of, but anyways, yeah, to me, there's like a lot of different things you can explore with this idea that's interesting in the realm of like horror movies, because there's a lot of like weird shit. Like there's like a whole category called rape revenge movies, like I Spit on Your Grave and The Last House on the Left. Like they start off really brutal with like bad people doing bad things, but then these girls get revenge, or these families get revenge, and it's like kind of satisfying seeing these people get fucked up because they did bad things, right? So it'd be interesting to see that applied in that regard too. But anyways, you're just like, you're fucking weird. Okay, so let's talk about some other people's opinions on this movie, because like I said, a lot of people love this movie.
Oh, it was just also so slow. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I think that's another thing is like part way into it, you said you like Apostle more than this movie.
Yeah.
And I get that, because Apostle, even though it was like pretty slow and pretty long, it had enough stuff
Apostle had a bit of like romance sparked in there.
Well, I feel like it also didn't rely on atmosphere and nice shots.
And it like you were able to like the characters. Like the characters actually had a bit of development. I feel.
There was like story to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Where
just
these
like,
were
hey,
just,
we're
like,
gonna be
literally
here.
just kids.
Right. Yeah, like have like 10 different stories going at least if you're gonna build on stories, right? Like instead of just dragging out. Like there was a 5-minute scene of the girl driving around and then going to an ice cream shop and then getting ice cream, and it was like a whole shot. And I was like,
There was a whole shot of them, the camera spinning around a school hallway to then follow them into the principal's office.
right.
Like,
And
what?
the thing is with like people who love art house films, they love those shots and they say that it's effective because it builds up tension, right? Like if you're paying attention to the music and stuff, they're trying to make you feel tense and
just
feel
don't
like
think they
something's
did it
going to
well.
happen, right?
I don't think they did it well. Because, like, Hereditary did the same thing, but Hereditary, I think, did it better.
Right. Yeah, they're different movies though too. Like one,
But essentially, they're the same, like, art house style.
yeah, sort of, for sure.
Like, I saw it, but Hereditary is better for that.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay, let's read some other people's opinions on this. This one is a 1 out of 10. I think I sent you the 5, right? 5 out of 10?
Yes.
Okay, so the 1 out of 10 from Convicted Ghost from December 2015. The tagline is, "It follows, ... but it didn't."
Neither did I.
First of all, I can't believe people are giving this 10 out of 10. This proves some people do not know what a good movie is. Come on. Plot, I will summarize the whole damn movie. A creature is following a girl who had sex with a guy. The girl tries to get rid of it. She fails. The end. There's no explanation to what it is. Why would she break a girl's leg and kill her? Kills her while killing another guy through humping his soul out. What is it after? Why would the victim team up to watch their own backs, since the death of one would mean the hunt for the other begins? So many question marks everywhere. So many illogical things happening. If I were followed by it, I would at least look around or choose to travel in an airplane every few weeks. There's no coherence in this movie. The ending was just horrible.
I forgot about the ending. Oh my god.
To top all of that, some reviews say it's the horror movie of the decade. Really? Does that mean you didn't watch any other horror movie this decade? And that was the end of their review.
Of the decade? That means 10 years, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Jesus.
This is apparently the best movie to some people in the past 10 years.
Since 1994 to 2014.
Yep.
They're stupid.
Yep. And there was a lot of good movies in that time frame.
I mean, from 2004.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's still a lot of good movies in that time frame. The airplane thing, in the trivia, I didn't put it in the trivia because I didn't think it was interesting enough to talk about, but I'll touch on it now. The director said that he thinks that it would be able to get onto an airplane. If you were to get on an airplane and go somewhere, it would follow you on an airplane.
Because it can fly, or it can teleport, or...
Well, because
what if you were so far ahead of it?
Well, because it technically, it won't drive or get in a car unless it's, like, the doors open and you're in that car, right? Mm-hmm. But an airplane, it can just, like, literally just walk on. Right? Like, the door's open. Where, like, a car, somebody has to open a door for you. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, it's
what if
just
the
a weird
airplane's
thing.
already in the air and he's not on it?
Then he would get on the next plane and fly out and follow you, right? Yeah. He always knows where you are.
Doesn't have to be on the same plane as you.
Right.
Okay.
But I think that's just the director trying to make this movie more ominous and spooky and be like, yeah, this creature's going to get you no matter what.
There's no way to escape it.
Yeah, you think you cracked it? Well, you didn't. Okay, so you can read the 5 out of 10.
I think you sent me 2 5 out of 10s.
I don't think so.
Look, 5 on the top and then 5 right there too.
Unless I did it twice.
No, they're different ones.
No, it's the same text. The guy just ends it by saying 5 out of 10 again. Because he's an idiot. Yeah.
Okay, sheesh. You want me to read this one?
Yep.
Okay, 5 out of 10. It says, good elements, but flawed. It's refreshing to see a modern teenager's horror movie that is actually creepy, doesn't have any jump scares, and is really done well. Good production, good acting, good cinematography, good score, creepy idea for a plot. I'd say it takes ideas from films like The Thing, Night of the Living Dead, The Terminator, Westworld, and A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I guess you consider it as an allegory for AIDS, which is what I said. And it takes itself seriously and doesn't insult your intelligence. Everything about this movie is good, except that it's way too slow and long. How long was it?
I don't think it was that long.
Oh, I don't think it was long. It was slow. It would have worked a lot better as a short, 30 minutes at most. Or at least it should have been more complex and have more twists, since the plot is just too simple.
I agree.
The ending is very disappointing. The entire movie has an 80s feel to it. In a good way. 5 out of 10 creepy movie, good elements, but overall it's flawed.
So what do you think about the ending of the movie? First, let's explain the ending to listeners, and then tell me what you think about it.
Okay, so I think the camera just pans to the main girl and the high school boy who she tries passing it on to, and I think it works.
Yeah, because they have sex on a couch.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're holding hands, walking down the neighborhood street, and it shows behind them someone's following them.
Right.
And then it just...
does it for a good 2 minutes?
Yep, and then it just ends. It just ends. That was the stupidest thing I ever seen. Like, do they have a plan that they're gonna get rid of it? Is that thing gonna get both of them?
Well, we never found out if it actually died or not in the pool because he shot it multiple times in the pool.
Clearly it didn't then.
And there's blood everywhere. But we don't know for sure if it was it that was following them either.
Who would have it been then?
Well, I think they were leaving it ambiguous. It could have just been a person going for a walk the same route, right? I think that was the director's whole idea is like, well, it's up for interpretation. It could have been, but I'm not going to say it.
Well, then why would he do that scene? That is just the dumbest thing ever.
So that it's up for interpretation.
Why interpret him as stupid?
Okay. So you didn't like the ending?
No!
Okay. Jeez, that was loud.
Sorry.
This last one is from Mark Den from April 2015. It's a 10 out of 10. Back to the basics. Remember the first time you saw Michael Myers spying on Jamie Lee Curtis when she was walking home from school in the original Halloween? Melissa's shaking her head no. The simplicity of that scene, from the soundtrack to the non-use of gore, was terrifying. He was just standing there watching her. You knew what was going to happen later, and that scene allowed your mind to run away with the possibilities of terror that would ensue. Okay, so the first paragraph is about a completely different movie. So let's... As I watched It Follows, that's exactly how I felt for the majority of the film. Terrifying simplicity, with a soundtrack / score that is, in all caps, out of this world. I was going to yell it, but I think listeners would not appreciate that. Excellent. I actually believe that the music during this movie contributed more than anything else. So good, I've pre-ordered it on vinyl. The cast is fresh and talented, and you won't recognize the villain until it's almost too late. See it now.
Wait, what? We don't know who the villain is.
The villain is it.
Well, I recognized it right away then. What are you talking about?
Right.
Oh my
Well, this
God.
guy is also saying the only reason this movie's good is because it reminded him of Halloween, and the score was so good that he pre-ordered it on vinyl, which is like a pretty pretentious fucking sentence to say.
And then I don't think that deserves 10 out of 10 because it reminds you of something else.
Right.
Or I get the feeling of it's like this.
I like that half his review was about the first Halloween movie. So I read a lot of reviews for this when it first came out, and a lot of my friends love this movie, especially friends who like horror movies.
Do you like it, Kenny?
Like I said, it's like a 2.5 or a 3 out of 5.
Yes.
So it's not bad to me. Like, there's enough there that I don't get mad watching it, which is why I have it, and I've watched it a few times. But it's not one that I would be like telling everybody to rush out, and I wouldn't say it's the best horror movie ever. I feel like it's a movie that anybody who likes horror movies a lot should watch, just because I think everybody who likes horror movies gets to a point where you kind of start running out of really good horror movies to watch.
Yeah.
And then you look for ones that just aren't terrible and have like somewhat interesting and unique ideas and like interesting enough visuals that take you away from the shittier movies that you've watched. And I feel like this one's like, this is the best way to explain it. This movie is kind of like a palate cleanser. So like, let's say you're watching a movie marathon and you watch a bunch of good ones, and then you watch like a really bad one. This would be one I would slip in between, because if you jump from a bad one to a really good one, then you're going to be like, well, shit, now the rest of this is going to suck. But if you like work your way back up to a really good movie, you'll be like, okay, this is like kind of fun again. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It makes sense.
so
How are you supposed to know, though, it's going to be a mediocre movie, though?
Well, it might not be for everybody, and I think that's why it's like a good kind of palate cleanser, because it might surprise people, right? Like, just because me and Melissa didn't love this movie and you're out there doesn't mean you won't love this movie, because, you know, everybody has different opinions. I hated Hereditary, but a lot of people I know love that movie. So It's just another one of those things where it's like really polarizing, and it's interesting to kind of see why people gravitate towards movies like this. But to me, it's like just because something's like artistic doesn't necessarily mean that it's
Good.
well entertaining.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between like, how do I explain it? I don't have a Van Gogh hanging in my house or a print of a Van Gogh. I can't say that I don't appreciate his artwork. I can't say that I don't think he's very talented and good at what he does. But I don't want to see a Van Gogh every day. I want to see a fucking poster of Wolverine standing on a fucking corpse like he's ready to kill people with samurai swords through him, right? Like, or like just anything that's somewhat entertaining. That's what I want to see. And I feel like that's how I am with movies too. Like I can watch Freddy vs. Jason all day, every day. But if you give me something that's like, okay, you're going to sit here and think about this for 2.5 hours, and then I'm going to give you something that's like very atmospheric and spooky, I'll watch it. I might enjoy it. But chances are, if you're not giving me something that's like somewhat batshit crazy, I'm not going to enjoy it. And I think that's why Apostle stands out for me. Like if this movie, at the very end of this movie, it went all in on something or anything, it would have delivered more for me.
Yeah, like if that thing that was following them would have like killed both of them, that would have been fine.
And it's kind of funny that I'm saying that because that's kind of what Hereditary did.
Yeah.
They held out until
God,
the very end to fucking just go all in, but then
But it was not anything. Oh my god.
it also just didn't explain anything.
Yeah, that was stupid too.
It felt like a movie that was like this. Like Hereditary felt like a movie like this, but at the very end it was like 10 minutes of the Greasy Strangler. Like something that you're just like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah, anyways. Do you want to read some trivia with me and then we'll wrap this up?
Okay.
Okay, I don't remember. Okay, I do remember which ones I sent you. Do you want to read one and we'll just go back and forth?
So each paragraph is one?
Yeah, I gave you the longer ones, I think.
I'm a better reader.
Agreed.
Okay, I'll start. In the beginning of the film, when the main character Jay is seen looking into the mirror as she gets ready for her date with Hugh, there are 2 photos on the mirror. One of Jay in the swimming pool and the other of her father. At the end of the film, it takes the form of her father and attacks Jay in the swimming pool. We also see him in a photo towards the end of the movie. So it was her dad that was at the pool.
Yeah, who was going to have sex with her to death?
Blech.
Or break her legs for no reason.
That's better.
Or kill her in any other random fucking way because there's no idea why this thing wants to kill these people.
Yeah.
Although it was like weird because they were all either always naked or all in white.
Yeah. Or like a boob hanging out.
Or peeing themselves.
Yeah.
The film's concept derives from a reoccurring nightmare the director had, where he would be stalked by a predator that continuously walked slowly towards him, which like makes sense. I've had some pretty fucked up nightmares that felt so real that I feel like if I turned them into a movie, I could get across the feeling that I felt. But I also don't think that I could make it 2 hours long and entertaining. You know what I mean?
It'd have to be a little 5-minute clip.
Yeah. Okay, next one, Melissa.
Ball seems to follow the curse throughout the entire movie. No, I only seen it once. A ball?
It happens a lot.
Really? I only saw the ball when it hit the window and she was like,
It's
looking
not.
in her underpants.
That's the one like in your face one, but they kind of place. They place like balls and the color red in certain scenes. Like just keep reading, you'll hear it.
Soon after Jay gets infected, a ball hits her window and lands in her garden. When they go to Hugh's house, they find a picture of him holding a ball. Oh, okay. After Jay has slept with Greg, a ball is seen bouncing from the directions of Jay's house towards Greg's house. I don't remember that. Finally, when Jay sees Greg dying, the motif on her t-shirt, a blonde girl and a ball, is seen clearly. Clearly, not clearly, because I didn't see it.
Well, it was the one that she was wearing when she took it off to go to the boat.
Okay.
So she was wearing it around then. It was a white t-shirt.
But I didn't notice.
Well, because it didn't really look like a girl holding a ball. It just looked like a weird picture of a girl's face and then some red object. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
The ball is covered by her hair up until the very moment he dies. She is still wearing the t-shirt later when Paul tries to kiss her, implying that she did not go through with her plan to pass it on to the guys on the boat.
Which I don't understand that logic. Like, just because she's still wearing the same t-shirt with a ball on it means that she didn't fuck these dudes. Like, what else would she do?
She put it back on because it was dry.
And it was the only clothes she had.
Yeah.
Right. That just goes to show, like, how much people read into movies like this, / how, like, people think that they're smarter than everybody else sometimes. But
yeah, I don't get this ball thing.
I mostly wanted to put it in there to see your reaction and to point out how
that's just
pretentious some of the
literally.
stuff involving this movie can be.
Like, it's not obvious at all. I didn't see it.
Well, I read that before we watched the movie, and it's still not obvious.
Yeah.
And it's not the same ball every time. The ball that they were talking about that bounces
like, if it was
across
a
the
red
street,
ball every single time, okay, I'd be like, oh, what the heck is a
right.
ball?
In one of them, it was a soccer ball.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was,
and, like, the guy holding a basketball. Like, ooh.
Right. And I was reading other things, too, where it was like every time you see it following somebody or it walking towards somebody, the scene right before, there's an object that's red in the frame right before.
Good for you.
And it's like, cool. So in one scene, there's 7 people wearing t-shirts, and one of them happens to be red. And that means that...
You're wearing a red t-shirt?
Well, that's... Oh, no. If we see a ball, we better start walking. Not running, walking.
Yeah, because we'll still get it. We don't have any balls.
Yeah, that was another thing is, like... It just, like, briskly walked everywhere. It, like, never chased anybody, right?
No. But it still got you.
You keep blowing... keep blowing out the mic. That's okay. I'm sorry to listeners. I can't really go in and fix that. Well, I can. I just don't want to. Okay, so this is my last piece of trivia.
I have one more.
So Mike Lanier, who plays the very tall It guy...
Oh, that was kind of...
Is 7'7", Detroit resident who designs engines for General Motors and is one half of the world's tallest twins. So there's a set of twins out there that are 7'7".
What if his twin is like not 7'7"?
I don't know.
What if they're like not identical?
To be fair, like that scene of that really tall guy popping in.
That was probably is
really one of the coolest parts of that movie. It scared the fuck out of me the first time I watched this movie.
I think that was when I was like, ooh, like I kind of.
And the scene where the little boy crawls through the hole in the door.
Oh, that was gross.
That was a good one too. Okay, so you have one more, you said?
Yeah. When Jay's friends play Old Maid on the porch, there is a slow zoom in on a card that has a cartoon of an old lady on it. This foreshadows the next scene when Jay first sees it follow her in the form of an old lady.
Oh my god, there's so much foreshadowing in this movie. Crazy. And Old Maid is a card game where you want to try and pass the Old Maid to people, because if you have Old Maid, you lose.
Wow. That's such a great metaphor.
Just like AIDS. That's how this movie works, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for our talk on It Follows. Yeah, I don't know. Would you recommend this movie to anybody?
No.
You wouldn't?
No.
No. I would recommend it to people who are looking for a new horror movie to watch that they haven't seen, and just be prepared to either love it or hate it.
I'd recommend The Apostle over this.
It's tough for me to recommend that too, because I think that there's like a very specific group of people that would enjoy that movie too. But I feel like a lot of people would get butthurt over that movie as well.
I feel like if you liked period movies, like... What?
Period movies.
Like, set in, like, whenever that was set, like the 1800s.
Oh, I thought you meant, like, bleeding vaginas.
That's not what I meant.
Period movies.
Isn't that what they're called?
Yeah, I'm just teasing. The next episode, I'm hoping to get the previous co-host Kyle, my brother, not new Kyle, back on the show with Melissa to watch House of Wax, the remake. So hopefully we can do that next week. I want to try and do it before the end of October, so we have at least one more horror movie to share. Other than that, old previous guest Ethan has been back and recorded a couple episodes with me that I'm excited for people to hear. We did one on the Super Mario Brothers movie, which, everybody knows it's one of the worst movies ever made, so I'll leave it at that.
I didn't even know there was one.
And we also watched Encino Man, and we talk a little bit about Pauly Shore and the Renaissance. So, you guys can keep your eyes out for that. And
your ears out.
I guess if you want to keep up with the podcast, you can follow us at Life with Kenny Pod on Instagram or the Life with Kenny podcast on Facebook. And Melissa, what do you say to people who like this movie?
You dumb, get a life.
Wow.